I never liked Brad from the moment my sister introduced him. There was something about his too perfect smile and the way his eyes didn't match it. But Sarah was head over heels, and nothing I said could convince her otherwise. He's just protective because he cares, she'd say when he'd check her phone. He's ambitious, she'd defend when he'd belittle her career. He's just nervous about the wedding, she'd explain when he demanded final say on every detail of their special day. The wedding was a monument to Brad's ego. He insisted on a destination ceremony at a luxury resort that bankrupted our parents. The guest list had 200 of his important connections and only 50 of Sarah's closest friends and family. He even vetoed her choice of wedding dress because it wasn't sophisticated enough for his image. I was the maid of honor, a role that quickly became damage control. I dried Sarah's tears when Brad criticized her vows for being too emotional. I ran interference when he disappeared for 2 hours during the reception to network with some CEO. I pretended not to notice when he openly flirted with one of the bridesmaids. The next 3 years were painful to watch. Sarah, once vibrant and confident, became a shadow. She quit her job as a graphic designer because Brad said it was just a hobby. She stopped calling our parents because Brad thought they were provincial. She even changed her appearance, dyeing her natural red hair blonde because Brad preferred it. I tried to stay close, but Brad saw me as a threat. I was the one person who remembered who Sarah used to be. He began crafting elaborate excuses for why they couldn't attend family gatherings. He'd accidentally delete my messages from Sarah's phone. When I'd visit their immaculate suburban home, he'd make cutting remarks disguised as jokes. Here comes the spinster sister, still saving the world one stray cat at a time. Sarah's so lucky to have a sister to show her what not to do with her life. I nearly cut contact entirely after their 3rd anniversary dinner. Brad spent the whole evening highlighting every one of Sarah's flaws to the table, laughing as if it were all in good fun. When I confronted him in the kitchen, he dropped the act. Sarah needs structure, he hissed. Before me, she was nothing. I made her respectable. What have you ever done except encourage her worst impulses? When I told Sarah what he'd said, she defended him. That night, I cried all the way home. Everything changed at Christmas. Sarah arrived at our parents' house alone, her face pale but determined. Brad had been too busy to come, his 4th absence from a family event that year. During dinner, Sarah's phone kept buzzing. Each time, her face fell a little more. When she finally checked it, something broke. Without a word, she handed me her phone. It was a photo of Brad, in their bed, with a woman I recognized as his assistant. That night changed everything. Sarah collapsed into my arms, sobbing like I hadn't seen since we were children. Between gasps, she revealed the full extent of Brad's manipulation, the emotional abuse, the financial control, how he'd isolated her from everyone who actually cared about her. I feel so stupid, she whispered. You tried to warn me. I held her tight. This isn't your fault. None of it. Sarah stayed with our parents that night, and the next day, I went with her to their house to collect some essentials. We timed it perfectly. Brad was at his weekly golf game, a sacred ritual he'd never miss. The household staff, because of course Brad insisted on having staff, averted their eyes when we entered. They knew. While Sarah packed her clothes, I noticed a home office I'd never been allowed to enter. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, I found meticulously organized file cabinets and a desktop computer still running. Sarah, I called softly. Has Brad ever let you in here? She appeared in the doorway, face pale. Never. He'd lose his mind if he knew we were looking. That's all I needed to hear. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I don't regret it either. While Sarah continued packing, I went through Brad's files and computer. As a corporate lawyer myself, something Brad always mocked as a boring career for people without vision, I knew exactly what I was looking at. Tax fraud, embezzlement, falsified investment reports. Brad had been stealing from his clients and business partners for years, using the money to fund their lavish lifestyle. There were offshore accounts, shell companies, and detailed records of who he was bribing to keep it all quiet. When I showed Sarah, she wasn't even surprised. He always said rules were for ordinary people. We took copies of everything, locked the office exactly as we'd found it, and left. The next part required patience. Sarah moved into my apartment downtown. The divorce papers were served to Brad at his office, a public humiliation he hadn't anticipated. His immediate response was rage. He froze their joint accounts, changed the locks on the house, and began a smear campaign, telling everyone Sarah had mental problems and had abandoned him without cause. When we didn't react, he escalated, threatening voicemails, emails promising to destroy her, even showing up at our parents' house, putting on a devastated husband act that fooled no one. She'll never get a penny, he snarled when our father asked him to leave. I made her, and I can break her just as easily. That's when we executed the next phase of our plan. Sarah filed for divorce, citing infidelity and emotional abuse, with the photo as evidence. Brad countered with outrageous demands and lies. What he didn't count on was me, the boring corporate lawyer, knowing exactly how to use what we'd found. We didn't go after him directly. Instead, I quietly contacted the SEC and the FBI with our evidence. I used my professional connections to make sure the information landed on the right desks. 6 weeks into the divorce proceedings, while Brad was in court smugly refusing Sarah's reasonable settlement offer, the federal agents arrived at his office with search warrants. The look on Brad's face when his lawyer pulled him aside to tell him his office was being raided, that moment alone was worth everything. His carefully constructed mask cracked, revealing the panic beneath. By the time we left the courthouse, his phone had exploded with calls from clients, partners, and the firm's executives. One moment he was a respected finance wizard. The next, he was toxic. Brad tried to flee that night. We had anticipated he might. But the feds were already monitoring his accounts and movements. They intercepted him at the private airfield where his chartered plane was waiting. The news featured his perp walk the next morning, designer suit exchanged for handcuffs. Sarah watched the coverage in silence, then turned to me. "I don't feel happy," she admitted. "Just relieved. Like I've been holding my breath for 3 years." The following months were a whirlwind. Brad's scheme unraveled spectacularly. His firm disavowed all knowledge. His friends disappeared. Even his own family distanced themselves, his father telling reporters, "We raised him better than this." The divorce proceeded quickly with Brad behind bars awaiting trial. His assets were frozen, but the judge awarded Sarah their house and what remained of their legitimate finances. Brad's lawyer, desperate to salvage something, suggested Sarah might want to speak on Brad's behalf for leniency. She declined. Brad eventually took a plea deal, 15 years for fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. According to the guard I still occasionally get coffee with, Brad spends his days convinced he'll make a comeback, that everyone will realize his genius was misunderstood. Classic narcissist to the end. As for Sarah, recovery wasn't instant. She struggled with guilt, not for exposing Brad, but for ignoring the red flags and pushing away those who tried to warn her. Therapy helped. So did moving into her own apartment, rediscovering her design talent, and starting her own successful studio. Last week marked 5 years since that Christmas revelation. We celebrated with our parents at Sarah's new lake house, purchased with her business profits, not a cent from Brad. She's dating again, cautiously. A kind history professor who asks her opinion and actually listens to the answer. Sometimes people ask if I feel bad about my role in Brad's downfall. I don't. I didn't create fake evidence or exaggerate the truth. I simply made sure his own actions and decisions caught up with him. That's not revenge, it's justice. The real victory isn't Brad's imprisonment or Sarah's financial security. It's watching my sister laugh freely again, seeing her choose her own clothes, friends, and dreams without seeking approval, witnessing her reclaim her voice. Brad tried to erase my sister and remake her in his image. In the end, she emerged stronger, while his own carefully crafted image was destroyed by the truth he couldn't control. A narcissist's worst nightmare isn't losing money or status, it's losing control of the narrative. Brad thought he was writing our family's story, with himself as the hero and the rest of us as bit players in his grand drama. He never realized we were writing our own stories all along. And in mine, I'll always cherish the chapter where my sister found herself again, and I got the last laugh.